You got Birds 365 streaming into your living room or your phone or your computer or wherever else you may be receiving us today. We thank you for streaming in and hopping aboard with us, getting ready for a Monday night showdown between the Bucs and the Eagles in Tampa. Is he ready to join us? Let's punch our buddy Rob Maaddi up from the Associated Press. Former Philly guy, now a Tampa guy, but he's Philly at heart. Don't let him ever kid you for anything else. But I know he's also a pro's pro, so he's going to go to the press box tonight and not root at all. Right, Mike? You ever lose it? You ever just give the little fist bump that you're not supposed to, and somebody looks at you sideways in the press box?
I haven't, but I've certainly seen a ton of guys do that. There's a certain section in when I used to be at the Eagles press box, Jody, and I had a lot of radio guys, and sometimes they get a little out of hand. They get a little
radio guys. Not radio guys. Radio guys wouldn't do that. Come on.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised. Thank you very much for confirming that for me.
Yeah, there's been a few quiet downs down there. So there's and then the print guys, Jody. It used to be so like Eagles press box when I was there for like 20 plus years. Used to be so. It was like a segment of print media, then the TV and the radio guys, and there was some animosity sometimes. So yeah, I'm glad to be in a fun, friendly, palm tree filled, beautiful Florida where the Tampa media is all welcoming and it's going to be a fun night. I've been to every Bucs game now for the last home game for the last 3 years. I haven't seen any fights walking into the stadium. Nothing. There's a lot of teams, opposing fans, zero. I'm hoping that streak continues tonight because I know there's going to be a big contingent of Eagles fans down there. So I hope I can say the same after tonight, that there still haven't been any fights as I'm walking into the stadium, looking around in the parking lots and at the fans and at the tailgates. So I need Philly to do me proud tonight.
I'm rooting for it too, but I don't know if you're going to get lucky enough to get that. There may be some hijinks before the game starts. But let me give you a question I asked of Jeff Kerr, and Bill and I discussed it already too. Eagles versus Tampa. Is it a true rivalry? It's not Eagles Cowboys, it's not Eagles Giants, but it's better than the Eagles and the Bengals or the San Diego Chargers, LA Chargers, whatever. It's not intra-conference, it's inter-conference. How good a rivalry do you think Eagles-Bucs is?
It was certainly a better rivalry back in the early 2000s when the Eagles beat them 2 years in a row in the playoffs. And then we all know what happened when Gruden came up to the vet and closed it out with the victory in the NFC Championship game. And Rondé Barber is going to get honored tonight for going into the Hall of Fame. So Eagles fans are going to see that up close and have that memory smack them in the face. They probably should bring Joe Jaravicius out and have him do something if they really want to get on Eagles fans' nerves too. But I think it was a bigger rivalry then. If you're talking about non-divisional opponent, you know, they played in the playoffs a couple of years ago. They're facing each other now at 2-0, although I don't believe in the Bucs as a true 2-0 undefeated team right now. It's better, as you said, than an Eagles, someone else outside the NFC East type of matchup.
Rob, you mentioned you've been to all these Bucs games, and I've watched some of these games on tape, and I'm seeing Baker Mayfield, a quarterback who's playing a very efficient style of football, not taking a lot of risks. And when he is, he's going to Mike Evans, who he knows he can trust on these 50-50 balls. Are you seeing Baker Mayfield play some of the best quarterback play he's had in his career?
Yeah, and I think he's benefited from some really solid coaching. I really like Dave Canales as an offensive coordinator. He's come in and been a significant upgrade over Byron Leftwich from last year. And of course, it's a different offense, different quarterback, different system. You're going from the GOAT to Baker Mayfield. But I think we saw a little bit of Baker, what he can do. The year he led the Browns to the playoffs. And then last year when he ends up with Sean McVay, like this is a guy who was a number one overall pick for a reason. He's got some talent. And what I've seen from him is some poise, some maturity, a guy who kind of realizes like this probably is going to be my last opportunity to be a number one quarterback in the NFL, and he's making the most of it. And as you said, Mike Evans is a go-to guy for any quarterback. Would be smart to throw to him. I think he's one of the most underrated players, wide receivers in the NFL. I think if Mike Evans, I've said this before, if Mike Evans retired today, he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer with the numbers he's put up. You got Chris Godwin, who's one of the better slot receivers in the NFL, and that could be an area where the Buccaneers look to exploit the Eagles tonight, especially without Avonte Maddox. But Baker's played mistake-free, turnover-free football, and that helps you. That's going to help you win games. I think this is going to certainly be their toughest matchup tonight against the Eagles. And if they somehow came out of this at 3-0, maybe then they'll start making the non-believers like myself believers. Now, of course, they're in the NFC South, which is a division that's, I still think, up for grabs. Anyone could win that division. I thought the Saints had the edge, but if Derek Carr is going to be out for an extended period of time, right now it's there for the Buccaneers to take it, win or lose tonight. They still have that opportunity. They got playmakers on defense. If Baker can continue to protect the football and play smart, error-free, they're going to be in a lot of games.
All right, Maaddi, man, last year the Eagles had 70 sacks. Miraculously, according to some, in Jonathan Gannon's soft defense, but they got 70 sacks last year, almost an NFL record for an overall season. They haven't gotten sacked so far this year. They've gotten good pressures, specifically from up the middle. The two big Georgia kids and Fletcher Cox have been very good at generating pressure up the middle to force the pocket to move. But they haven't gotten home from the outside, from the edges just yet. We know Hassan Reddick's playing with the club on his hand because of the surgery he had to have on his finger. BG hasn't gotten home yet. Derek Barnett is still on his team. Why? I don't know. But is this a breakout night for the Eagles potentially to get a couple of sacks with the fact that the Tampa Bay line is not as good as it was a couple of years ago when this team won the Super Bowl?
Yeah, and they're very susceptible up the middle. But I will say this, Jody, sometimes pressures are more important and better than sacks. And
you sound like McMullen.
You know what?
Nothing's better than a sack. Nothing is better than a sack. I'm sorry.
All right, explain this to me. In 10-year-old flag football on Friday night, my daughter's playing against boys, the only girls in the league.
Nice.
Alexia gets a pressure up the middle, about to sack the quarterback. He throws a pick six. Would you rather have the sack or the pick six?
Of course not. Of course you'd rather have the pick six. But
I hear you.
Unless you could have had this great pressure and the guy could have thrown it up for grabs and they could have come down with a 60-yard touchdown pass.
Unless it's a pick six or a turnover, yeah, you're going to take
the sack. Is it. There's no even potential downside. A sack's a sack. With a pressure, it could be great or it could be awful and meaningless.
This could be the game where you see the Eagles get 4 or 5 potential sacks, and Jalen Carter can have a night tonight, and Fletcher Cox and all the guys up the middle. I think they're going to have to figure out. That's where the Eagles are going to dominate. Is that offensive line? Although they're improved over the group that gave Tom Brady absolutely no time to throw last year. I think he got rid of the ball faster last season than he did at any point in his life because he had to live and survive to make it to the end of the year. The Eagles got that opportunity, and it's going to be one right there up the middle. I don't think the Buccaneers can run the football effectively. They're averaging 3.3 yards per carry as a team, so they're going to certainly try to do that. They're going to try and run the football. Eagles shut them down trying to run. Now they're going to put them in passing situations. They're going to come after them in the pass. And this might be the game, Jody, where you finally see some guys rack up some of those numbers so they can get back on their way of trying to match what they did last year. They may not get to 70. They probably won't have 4 guys with double digits like last year. But I think this is a dominant type defensive performance that we could find tonight.
You mentioned the offensive coordinator for the Bucs, and I do think he's been calling some really good games because the weakness on that Tampa Bay Bucs offensive line is the interior, but I've been seeing he's got Mayfield running a lot of play action, rolling out, and getting the ball out of his hands quickly. Even though Mayfield threw for over 300 yards against the Chicago Bears, 27 of his pass plays were for less than 20 yards down the field. Is that what you're seeing? Just a lot of short, quick, effective throws, getting the ball out of his hands fast?
Yeah, and you just want to keep the chains moving, right? Get the ball out of his hands, keep him safe, escape, be free from those turnovers, get the first downs, and maybe somebody busts one loose. Like Rashad White's a playmaker. You get him a little short screen pass or something. Maybe he takes the distance. Maybe he gets you 40, 50 yards. Hasn't happened yet, but that's what the hope is. That's what the goal is. But that's what you have to do with an offensive line. And you're not going to have time to sit back there, survey the field, find a guy deep. And now there was a couple deep balls, one to Mike Evans earlier in this season that they had the time for, and he made the play. But I think that's the kind of offense where Dave Canales is a guy who's trying to work with what he has and use it to the best of his advantage. Sometimes we see offensive coordinators come in and it's their system, and they're going to make the quarterback and the players fit into their scheme. He's taking his scheme, his system, kind of like what Sirianni did when he first came into Philadelphia, and catering it to what the guys on the offense can do and what they can do best.
Money Man, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being, I laugh at you, 10 being cowering in the corner in the fetal position, hidden under a blanket, how fearful should the Eagles be of Rashad White tonight, the Bucs starting running back?
I'm at a 4 or 5. I think he's a guy who can make plays, certainly when the ball is in his hands, and he can catch it coming out of the backfield. So if they can exploit a matchup there, I think the Bucs will certainly take advantage of it. But as far as running the ball, I mean, he's at that 3.2, 3.3 yards per carry. It's not going to, I don't see that getting any better tonight. I think his best shot is getting him the ball in space, not turning around and handing it off to him or pitching it to him. I don't think he's going to do much damage that way. But if the Buccaneers can find a way to exploit a matchup, get him the ball in space, he's shifty, he's fast, he's elusive, that's where he can make something happen. I'm not overly concerned about Rashad White, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, or anyone on this Buccaneers team tonight. I think that this is a game where the Eagles come in, they cover. They may not win by a big. I think I had it 27-20, but I got the Bucs scoring like a late garbage touchdown to make it a little bit closer. I don't think at any point tonight, Eagles fans, those who made the trip to Tampa, and I know there's going to be a loud contingent of them, are going to have to be sitting there afraid, biting their nails or fingers because that they think this game's up in the balance. I think the Eagles are going to come in there and impose their will on the Buccaneers, and we haven't seen them dominate yet in any of their first two games. And even though they put up a lot of points on Thursday night against Minnesota, there was a lot of criticism after that game. Kind of reminded me of that Thursday night win in 2019 going down to Lambeau, where the Eagles won that game and people were criticizing afterwards. Carson didn't have 200 yards passing, but they ran the ball. They ran it effectively in that game. They had 3 passing touchdowns. They had no turnovers. They beat Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau Field and scored 34 points. And it kind of reminded me after that Thursday night game against Minnesota, similar criticism. I think this is the game where people are going to walk out of it and go, all right, that's the Eagles team that went to the Super Bowl. Now they've arrived. They found their identity for 2023.
Yeah, Jody and I are going to give our predictions shortly, but little teaser. I agree with you, Rob, 100%. So jumping over to the defensive side of the ball for the Bucs, one of the advantages when you look at the roster for the Bucs and the Eagles, most of the roster positions, the Eagles have the advantage, but linebacker looks like something the Bucs would have the advantage on. But I talked to Jeff Kerr about this as well. According to Pro Football Focus, Levante David and Devin White, two guys who historically are very good linebackers, don't have a good rating this year. Are you seeing them not playing good football, or is that just Pro Football Focus getting it wrong?
Well, and it wouldn't be the first time that Pro Football Focus has gotten it wrong, that's for sure. Levante David's 33 years old. He's been an all-pro in the NFL. He's one of the best linebackers we've seen in decades. And could he be now at that point in his career where at some point you hit that 13 years into the league, you're going to start taking a little bit of a dip. Maybe he's not where he has been. Devin White was a little bit frustrated not getting the contract that he wanted. I still think that he's a guy who's playing for that next big deal. And at some point you'll see him do, he's a playmaking linebacker who can, I'm not going to put him in Micah Parsons' category, and Mike is more of an edge rusher now than a linebacker, but he's a guy who can have that type of impact on a football game. You're right. When you look at both sides, it's the only area where I would say the Buccaneers have a legitimate advantage over the Eagles, and it's the linebacking core. And I still think the Eagles can exploit some matchups, take advantage of that. They got so many weapons offensively. It's such a dynamic offense. They could run the football, as we saw. They can pass the football. There hasn't been a Dallas Goedert game. There hasn't been an A.J. Brown game yet. Who's going to be the guy who gets the 8 for 120? They have so many different options. I think one of those guys will step it up tonight.
All right, Maaddi, man, I want to do some role playing with you. Okay? I'm going to make you Mike McDaniel. You be Mike McDaniel. I'll be a member of the Dolphin media. So, Mike, what do you do for an encore?
Well, if I'm Mike McDaniel, I got to be quirky, and I'm not sure.
Always is very good.
I'm not sure I could pull
good
off
role
that
playing out of you, Maaddi.
that Miami Vice. I should have put on a white shirt and a pink shoes, and I had that back in the 80s.
I've seen you rock that. What do you
Man,
mean?
with Don
You go to the closet, get it out right now.
Ricardo Tubbs, man, I was that guy. But yeah, they're rolling. They are certainly rolling. They looked unstoppable yesterday on offense. The only time they got stopped is when they stopped themselves from scoring 73 at the end of the game and took a knee. I would have kicked that field goal, Jody. You already rolled up the score. Why not have your name at the top of the list? I think Sean Payton, after what he said about Nathaniel Hackett, I think any coach in the NFL it can go out there and rub it in a little bit if he wanted to. But the Dolphins are certainly clicking, and Mike McDaniel's they're never going to match that kind of offensive production, 750 plus yards and 70 points. But they could certainly continue to make life miserable for opposing defensive coordinators. I didn't think that they were going to be the class of the AFC East. I had the Jets until Aaron Rodgers went down, so that tells you what I know right now. But I certainly look at the Dolphins as a legitimate contender. They got to keep Tua healthy. So far, they have. And I know he's bulked up. I know he's wearing that quarterback-specific helmet that is somewhat of a help. We don't know until he gets dumped on his head, really, until he gets his helmet smashed on the turf at some point. But if they can keep him healthy, man, they got so many weapons, and it's going to be hard to stop this team.
So let's jump over to the NFC East. A lot of Eagles fans obviously are excited the Cowboys lose to the Cardinals. But let's look at another 2-0 team that was in the NFC East who's now 2-1, the Washington Commanders. I have not been a guy who's been high on Sam Howell, but he played decent in the first two games. Yesterday, 4 interceptions, sacked 9 times. Is that what we should expect from Sam Howell, or do you think he's actually a better quarterback than what he showed yesterday?
I think that's a little bit closer to what you're going to see from most quarterbacks, right, Bill? If you get no time in the pocket, you get you get bulldozed, you're overpowered. When you have no time, you're gonna and you're a inexperienced quarterback like Sam Howell, you're gonna put it up for grabs. You're gonna get picks. You got to get rid of the ball fast, and throw it at someone's feet or throw it out of bounds. That to me is more of what I expected from the Washington Commanders this year. A lot of ups and downs, a team that's trying to figure out their way, a team that's riding the emotional support and wave of new ownership and kind of gets by this year from a fan base standpoint on the excitement that Dan Snyder's no longer here, and whether they go 6-11 or 10-7, which I can't foresee them doing that. Fans are excited that it's a new era, it's a new regime. Now it's Ron Rivera coaching for his job with that new ownership, because they're certainly going to want to come in and bring in their guy, and anything short of playoff success for this team, I think, is going to do it for Ron, who's a good coach. He's been a good coach in the NFL, but he's also made some mistakes, that's for sure, along the way. I never thought that Sam Howell was going to be the long-term answer, but I needed to see him. And I'm not going to base it on one game where he had no time to throw. Like you said, Bill, he looked good in the first couple games of the season. Let's give him this is a learning year for the Commanders. They want to find out if Sam is going to be that guy. And he certainly could prove me and other people wrong and go out there and show you that he's got that potential. I don't think anybody thought Brock Purdy would be the answer for the San Francisco 49ers until you go out there and do it. You got to give that guy an opportunity.
Now, you mentioned new ownership, and before we move on, you're a Philly guy. New ownership, Josh Harris, who also owns the Philadelphia 76ers. In my opinion, that is a massive violation to own the 76ers and the Washington Commanders. I know he owns the Devils, but Sixers and Commanders, what's your take as a Philly guy, Rob?
Yeah, honestly, I don't care about that, because if I had that kind of coin, man, if I had billions and billions of dollars, I'm going to go out there and buy the Dallas Cowboys from Jerry Jones. I'm going to do it no matter where I was born, no matter what my rooting interest was. I sat in the 700 level as a kid, and and was there for the 4th-and-1 game and the snowballs, the Jimmy Johnson game. But if I had that kind of money, I'm like, hey, Jerry, what's it going to take? I'll go out there and buy anybody that I can. I'll buy the Mets. I'll buy the Yankees.
Just to own a team.
Yeah, just to own a team. So if you could do it, if you could pull that off, kudos to Josh Harris. That's the way I look at it.
And oh, by the way, Bill, get used to it. That's going to be the way things are going forward. The prices have skyrocketed so much. One individual can't do it. It's going to be groups. It's going to be borderline corporations buying teams, and somebody's got to be the lead dog. And Josh,
I got a shot. Then I got a shot of a piece.
You got a shot. Oh, I'm absolutely telling you got a chance.
For me, I need a shot.
Not a problem. And speaking of that rush that Buffalo put on Sam Howell yesterday, just beating the snot out of him. Even that being the case, I'll tell you that it wasn't a Washington offensive lineman who was the worst beat up yesterday. That was ex-Eagle Andre Dillard, who got abused by Myles Garrett yesterday, like a turnstile. They were going around and by and through him yesterday. I wish McMullen was on here today because he was a big Dillard fan who thought he was going to beat out Mailata in their camp battle a couple of years ago. It didn't happen. I don't want to wish ill on the guy, but did the Tennessee Titans overpay him to put him in at left guard and watch him get abused by Myles Garrett?
Myles Garrett's going to abuse a lot of guys, Jody, but certainly, as you said, when they put in that kind of effort, that kind of performance, with them 94 yards of total offense, I never bought into the Tennessee Titans. I thought they were a fraud a couple years ago, and then they went out and got the number 1 seed and lost in their first game. I don't believe in Ryan Tannehill. And then when you go into a game like that and your offensive play calling is 7, I believe, out of the first 9 plays throwing the football, when your offensive line's getting destroyed like that, and you got Derrick Henry back there and Ryan Tannehill, you're not, this isn't Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, or Peyton Manning or Tom Brady at quarterback. You got Derrick Henry, and you're facing a team that's going to eat your quarterback alive. Hand the ball to that big guy. Give it to him early in the game. So I think their play calling left a lot to be desired, and they're lucky. They're fortunate that they're in the AFC South. I thought that the Jags would run away with it, and you saw yesterday the Jags. There's always that. Doug Peterson always gives you that one game where his team goes into. You think that it's an easy one. They're going to win this, and they lay a clunker. And I still think they're the class of the AFC South. But you certainly look around that division and say everybody's in it, just because nobody's going to run away and be dominant. And even though Tennessee and Andre Dillard and they had a horrible performance against the Browns team, whose defense, by the way, we talked about Jonathan Gannon, Jim Schwartz he's done
killing it.
He's got a nice looking defense there in Cleveland through 3 weeks of the season. So Eagles former defensive coordinators had a big day yesterday. I know Eagles fans were down on JG. He did them a solid by beating the Cowboys yesterday. Is there any love? Is there anything like that going on in Philly? Like anybody sending a bouquet of flowers or maybe what is that, edible arrangements? Maybe something to Jonathan Gannon?
I wouldn't wait by the door for that delivery if I'm JG. Just saying. Don't think the Eagle fans will be changing their overall opinion on him. All right, we're running out of time here, so we need an official score from you, Mr. Maaddi. You kind of said Eagles win, hanging in the balance, not so much. Maybe a late score from Tampa that makes it closer on the scoreboard than the actual play of the game. What do you got for a final score? Eagles Bucks tonight.
Well, I just had to look it up, Jody, because I make my pro picks. I have to pick every NFL game straight up and against the spread on Wednesday.
Do. Of course you do. You're the National Football League guy for the AP.
I know, but
they're going to make you work for a living.
On a Wednesday. You know how much the line moves?
Wednesday's a little early.
The line moves. So I had to go back and find it. I did. I had the Eagles at 27-20 in this game. I think they haven't looked sharp yet, but they're undefeated, and the Buccaneers have been better than expected, and Mayfield's been efficient, and the team's got playmakers. But I think Eagles fans get to avenge that playoff loss from 2 seasons ago, when the Eagles came in there and Tom Brady. I think that was Brady's last playoff win. was against the Philadelphia Eagles. That was it. That was his last playoff win where they dominated them in that game. And we had questions after that. Is Jalen Hurts going to be a guy that you win with or you win because of? And then we found out last year that Jalen Hurts is a guy that you win because of. And I think tonight he'll show you that he's that guy. Eagles win 27-20.
All right, I lied. I'm going to make you make one more prediction. But this should be a layup for you. You pick games on Wednesday. So I'm asking you to make a prediction on the day of the game. That should be very easy. A.J. Brown, charting stats tonight, 4.5 catches, 65 yards. You going under, over, 4.5 catches, under, over, 65 yards.
Oh, you kidding me? With those Monday night cameras watching to make sure that there's no sideline spat that gets overblown, I think it'll be AJ blowing that out of the water. Over 4.5, over 65. It'll be Devontae Smith who probably has to sit there and say, "What about me?"
Wait, how about me? I think that'll be perfectly fine. Mighty man, always a pleasure, brother. You're not dressing as one of the Miami Vice guys going to the game tonight, are you? Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Not going to the back of the closet to bring out that.
I'm going to find it for my next appearance on Birds.
There you go. We need that look right here on Birds 365. Rob, always a pleasure. Thanks for jumping in, big guy.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Rob.
Maaddi here with us on Birds 365. Lead writer for the Associated Press. Gets an easy assignment tonight, one he loves. Going over to watch the Eagles and the Bucks. About a 20-minute drive from his house. He's got it easy. John McMullen had a longer way to get down there. He is traveling to Tampa today. That's why I'm with Bill Colarulo. When we come back, a couple more notes on the game. And yes, both of us will get on the record with a score for tonight's Eagles game. If the Birds win, they go to 3-0. There's only 2 other 3-0 teams. It took us all of 3 weeks to whittle it down to 3 teams at 3-0. Will it be the Bucks? Or will it be the Eagles? Bill and I will come back and give you our official picks on the game here on Birds 365.